On the day the company went public, a woman knelt before me, holding a child. "Ms. Emma, please save my child." Everyone present looked at me, and I looked at Marcus. I needed an explanation. Marcus rushed to me, but it was to help Grace up. "I'll take the child to the hospital first." We had been married for 6 years, and he never pressured me to have children, spoiling me completely. Yet, the child he had on the side looked 3 or 4 years old. Grace held the child, and he put his arm around her shoulder, gradually walking away. I was left alone, awkwardly rooted to the spot. The IPO bell ringing descended into chaos. I stared fixedly at Marcus's back, and as he was about to step out of the hall door, I rushed toward him recklessly. "Marcus, stop. Explain to me clearly, what exactly is going on?" Marcus looked at me, his brows slightly furrowed, and sighed. "Ethan is sick, and his condition is critical. I'm taking him to the doctor first. Everything else can wait until I get back." He pulled my wrist down, but I held on tightly, refusing to let go. Gradually, tears welled up in my eyes. I couldn't understand why this man, who had adored me for 10 years, who had been my entire youth, the man who would cycle 20 kilometers to buy me breakfast when we were in school, even keeping it warm against his chest, could change so suddenly. Just this morning, everything was fine, at the Sterling IPO, he was joking casually and publicly expressing affection in front of the media. How could he just fall apart in the afternoon? "Let the driver take the child, you stay here." I insisted on an explanation and had no intention of letting him go. The child in Grace's arms suddenly started wailing. She fumbled, trying to console him, looking helplessly at Marcus. Marcus suddenly roared, "The child needs to go to the hospital. Stop being so difficult, all right?" With that, he waved his hand and pushed me to the ground. I was still clutching a champagne glass in my other hand, and I suddenly lost my balance. The shattered with me, and large shards of glass pierced into my palm. The areas gripping the broken glass immediately became a bloody mess, blood mixing with the wine, forming a vivid red puddle that was horrifying to see. He didn't spare me a glance, putting his arm around Grace and turning to leave. At the hospital emergency department, I sat in a chair in the waiting area, waiting for the doctor to treat my wounds. At the other end of the emergency department, Grace held Ethan on the hospital bed, softly comforting him. The curtain was half drawn, and Marcus stood on the other side of the bed, occasionally bending down to check on the child's condition. He consoled Grace, patted her shoulder, and gently squeezed Ethan's little hand. "It's all right, the doctor said it's just ordinary meningitis. He'll be fine once the fever breaks. Ethan, the nurse will come to give you an injection in a bit. It might hurt a little, so try to be brave." The 3 of them, framed in a single scene, looked exactly like a family. And I, in a distant corner, felt like a clown peeking into their happiness. "It'll sting a bit, just bear with it." It wasn't until the doctor poured cold disinfectant onto my wound that I snapped back to reality. My palm was lacerated by the glass, making it difficult to treat. The first used tweezers to remove the glass shards embedded in my flesh before slowly stitching the wound. The pain was excruciating, and the nerves in my hand were so sensitive that I could feel the curved needle piercing my skin and flesh. It made me convulse, but I gritted my teeth and endured it. I used to be terrified of pain. I remember once in college, when I injured my leg, Marcus carried me to the campus center. It wasn't as painful then as it was now, but I still cried in his arms like a baby while getting stitches. Marcus was terrified by my reaction, acting as if the sky had fallen. After that, he insisted on carrying me to classes for a whole month, whether it was the classroom or the cafeteria. He even wished he could help me with trips to the restroom, just to prevent my leg from touching the ground and hurting. And now, the finished wrapping the last layer of gauze. All done. Don't let it get wet for 7 days, remember to apply antiseptic cream, and avoid spicy foods during recovery. After giving his instructions, he packed up and left. I looked down at my leg, bandaged into what looked like a bare paw, and forced a smile uglier than a cry. Now, these injuries were all thanks to him. My vision blurred. Just as tears were about to overflow my eyes, a water bottle suddenly landed in my hand. "The hospital only has cold water like this. Just make do with it for now," Marcus said, looking down at me. "It will be here soon. I'll have him ask if they have an ice pack for you." He rubbed his temples, looking exhausted. My eyes red, I couldn't help but ask him, "What about you? Aren't you here? If I'm not mistaken, you have legs too, don't you?" Marcus glanced toward the other end of the room, a troubled expression on his face. "Ethan's fever hasn't gone down yet, and he'll still need me through the night." I couldn't stop trembling. The wound on my hand seemed to connect to my heart, sending sharp pangs of pain through me. Marcus, is it fun to make a fool of me? We've been married for 6 years, and you've been lying to me for 4. My voice choked, and I couldn't hold back the tears as they streamed down, smearing the makeup on my face. I must have looked utterly pathetic. If my father's spirit were watching from heaven, he would be heartbroken. The precious daughter he had nurtured with all his heart, the most vibrant rose in the city's exclusive circles, who had been determined to marry for love in her prime, had set her heart on that poor boy with nothing. To spare me from sorrow, he had endured his advanced gastric cancer, personally giving my hand to Marcus, and even gave away half of his fortune to ensure my well-being, transforming that poor boy into a prominent figure on the billionaire rankings. Such an endorsement, and this was the outcome. I had lost this gamble completely. Marcus rubbed his temples, his face showing no sign of warmth. What else could I do? You wouldn't have children. You're the high and mighty, the Vance heiress, carefree and untouched by worldly concerns, but my large corporation needs an heir, doesn't it? Am I supposed to end up like your father, giving away most of the family fortune to others? Besides, I've indulged you enough. In these 6 years of marriage, I've never restricted your activities. You could shop to your heart's content, travel, have tea in the UK in the morning, and go on a shopping spree in Hong by noon. The only reason you could live such an idyllic life is because I've been carrying the burden for you, do you understand? Since you already know, I won't hide it from you any longer. Ethan is 3 years old now, and it's time to bring him home. I'll transfer his custody to your name, and you can raise him. As long as you treat him as your own, the gossip will quickly die down. Absurd. I was shaking with rage, and I picked up the water bottle and threw it at him. You're shameless. How dare he expect me to raise a bastard child? How had Marcus become like this? Grace saw me throw the water bottle at Marcus and practically flew over, shielding him, grabbing my skirt hem, and weeping. Ms. Emma, all the fault is mine. Please blame me. Marcus hasn't had it easy all these years, struggling alone without anyone truly caring for him, which is why we ended up together. Please don't worry, I truly didn't intend to break you two apart. It's just so the child can have a complete family and grow up with his father. As long as you can accept my son and me, Ethan will absolutely treat you like his own mother. From now on, he will be not only my son but yours too. She tugged at my skirt, ing hysterically, playing the victim in the empty emergency department. Every word she spoke was a jab to my heart, yet she looked as if I were the villain, as if I had done something terrible to her. I pushed her away, and Ethan on the hospital bed also started crying from fright. The scene immediately devolved into chaos. Marcus yelled at me, "Emma, that's enough. I'm sick and tired of your immaturity. Making such a scene in front of so many people, with no shame at all, you've completely disgraced me. You're no longer the Vance heiress now. The child has been born, and you can't put him back. Is arguing going to help? Either you accept this, or someone else will be Mrs. Sterling." He finally showed his true colors. People say that words spoken in anger are the most sincere. The delight in Grace's eyes was hard to hide. It felt like a heavy stone was pressing on my chest, and countless probing eyes from around me seemed to mock my pitiable state with their whispers. The world suddenly became a vacuum, suffocating me. I went to the bar to drink my sorrows away, collapsing on the counter, passed out. After all, by tomorrow morning, news of CEO Marcus's marital troubles would spread throughout every street. Everyone was waiting to see me as a joke, and ironically, I was the most ridiculous one. It was bad enough that my heartfelt devotion had come to nothing, but even my father's life's work had gone to someone else cheaply. I wanted to pull myself together, but years of being pampered had left me useless. Before, I relied on my father, and after marriage, I relied wholeheartedly on Marcus. Now, my retribution had arrived. As I was drinking my unknown number of drinks, my wrist was gripped, and the drink glass in my hand was taken away. I turned to look and saw a man in an elegant suit, completely out of place in the chaotic bar. His eyes were cold, tinged with a hint of weariness, and his half-open collar exuded a devil-may-care aura. He looked familiar. But if the alcohol affecting me, it took me a while to recognize him. "Alex?" Alex pressed his lips together. "At least you haven't drunk yourself silly." Now it was my turn to be shocked. "Weren't you overseas? When did you come back?" It was truly shocking to see the neighborhood boy who used to take me getting into mischief appear before me, especially at such a critical moment. What's more, Alex himself was synonymous with being surprising. He used to be a notorious wild and undisciplined young man, spending his days in a life of pleasure and extravagance. not only indulging himself but taking me along for the ride. You could say that my irresponsible and reckless ways were all learned from him. But the key was that once he'd had his fun, he went abroad to inherit the family business, and even managed to make the overseas branch flourish, topping the billionaire rankings year after year, while I was left stuck and utterly useless. Looking at him now, the gap was clear. Alex exuded the aura of a successful young talent. Meanwhile, my marriage had failed, I had accomplished nothing, and I was about to join the ranks of discarded wives. Alex ignored my question, his gaze falling to my bandaged hand, a dark glint in his eyes. He did this? I silently nodded, confirming he knew everything. Alex paused, annoyed at my lack of fight. Idiot, letting yourself be bullied like this and only daring to hide away and drink, he said, rubbing the drink glass in his hand, then tilted his head back and drained it. His face barely concealed his fury as he slammed the drink glass onto the table with a bang. Does that bastard Marcus really think you have no one looking out for you? I was overseas, not dead. Seeing his unruly, protective demeanor, I had a momentary flashback to my childhood, when Alex always defended me whenever I was bullied. All those pent-up feelings of grievance, along with my childhood memories, came flooding out, overwhelming me. I cried inconsolably. That Alright, I completely unleashed my emotions. I cried so much that Alex's suit was soaked, like a raincoat. I didn't return to Marcus's home until early the next morning. Although my relationship with Marcus was broken, this time I wasn't going to be a coward. He was the one at fault in this marriage, and even if we broke up, I should confront him directly and fight for my rights. To my surprise, Marcus was already waiting for me in the living room. He was still wearing yesterday's clothes, which were wrinkled, and there were tired dark circles under his eyes. He paced restlessly in the living room. Only when he saw me did he stop, rushing over to confront me. Where were you? Why do you reek of alcohol? He frowned, sensing something amiss from the smell of alcohol, and his face instantly changed. He grabbed my arm and threw me onto the sofa. Where did you get that men's cologne from? Did you go looking for another man? I had been drunk for most of the night, and my head was already hazy. Being thrown like that made me feel nauseous and want to vomit. A dull discomfort pulsed in my lower abdomen, but I ignored it, meeting his disgusted expression with a cold laugh. You've got a bastard child, derogatory, what right do you have to question me? You can't possibly think that after yesterday, I'd still be devoted to you. Marcus's anger intensified, as if he meant to crush my arm. He gritted his teeth. That's still not a reason for you to go looking for other men. As long as you're in Marcus's estate for one more day, you are my wife and must uphold your duty as the lady of the house. Are you insane? I pushed him away, intending to go upstairs, but my indifference enraged him. Marcus strode over and dragged me directly up to the attic. His strength was so great it felt like he was crushing my bones. His voice, too, was full of fury. I thought after all this, you would have learned your lesson. Since you're still being immature, don't blame me. All the my body was dragged and scraped across the floor and steps. His brutal actions made my skin burn with pain, even drawing blood. Throughout the ordeal, I struggled and cried out, my stomach hurting intensely. Marcus was unmoved. Like a demon risen from hell, he threw me into the attic. He looked at me, curled up on the floor, without a trace of pity. He turned and walked out, locking the door. This is to teach you a lesson. You can reflect on your actions in here. As I listened to Marcus's footsteps fade away, my heart sank completely. This was sealed off, usually serving as a storage room, with a thick layer of dust accumulated on the floor, a truly forgotten place. And with Marcus's explicit instructions, no one would come to rescue me, even if I screamed myself hoarse. My stomach began to ache with cramping pains again, along with the dull ache from where my skin had been scraped, and the tearing sensation in my palm. I leaned against the rusty shelf, and soon my back was drenched in sweat. I don't know how much time passed before the door finally opened. Grace came in, carrying a bowl of rice. She looked at my disheveled state with disdain. Is this really the Emma I knew? How did you get so pathetic? It seems without Marcus to back you up, you're nothing special. It wasn't for nothing that I risked delaying the child's treatment to expose our existence. Once it's out, he doesn't need to pretend anymore. Actually, he never loved you at all. He was just playing along for the sake of money. Now that Sterling has gone public, your path is almost at an end. While there's still a hot meal, eat it quickly, she said, pitying me as she threw the meal in front of me. But it was a bowl of spoiled rice. Grace continued to sneer, and in that instant, blood rushed to my head. This was simply too much. Ignoring my pain, I stumbled to my feet, grabbed her collar, and with my other hand, seized the rice bowl and dumped it onto her. The scalding hot food fell onto her, making Grace shriek repeatedly, and shattered porcelain shards cut her hand. She looked at me with venom in her eyes and violently shoved me to the ground. My body slammed against the rusty shelf behind me with a loud crash, and the miscellaneous items stacked on it fell onto me, causing excruciating pain throughout my body, especially in my stomach. A dampness spread between my legs. I touched it, and it was all blood. I froze. Grace also froze, but her expression quickly morphed into complex malice. "Serves you right, Emma, serves you right, ha 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 ha." She ran out and locked the door again. Just then, she ran into Marcus, who was ascending the stairs. Marcus had heard sounds from the attic and, unsure what was happening, had come up to check. Separated by a wall, my voice was shrill, and I hammered relentlessly on the door, a puddle of blood forming beneath me. "Marcus, let me out now. I'm bleeding, there's so much blood down there." Marcus's brows furrowed into a knot as he looked at Grace. What happened? The panic in Grace's eyes flickered and vanished, replaced by shamelessness as she extended her arm to Marcus, revealing the cuts from the broken porcelain and the mess on her clothes. I was bringing Ms. Emma her meal, but she didn't just refuse to eat it, she poured the hot soup and rice all over me. And my arm was cut by the broken porcelain. The blood she's talking about must be this. Her look of utter grievance extinguished any pity Marcus might have had, replaced instead by a helpless exasperation. He rubbed his temples, no longer paying attention to my wails from the attic, and sighed at Grace. "You've been through a lot. Emma is too stubborn and needs more discipline." After he said that, I heard his footsteps fade away. The blood beneath me had already spread out of the door. Marcus went downstairs, then plunged into the study. He didn't know how much time had passed before he was disturbed by a clamor and snapped back to reality. "Key fro." Ned as he left the study, only to see a familiar man, ignoring the housekeeper's attempts to stop him, stride boldly inside. His eyes were cold and his presence imposing. Before could even recognize him, he was met with a punch to the face. Marcus instantly fell to the ground, blood gushing from the corner of his mouth. He stumbled back to his feet, full of rage. "Alex, are you insane?" Alex radiated even more fury, yet he paid no mind to Marcus, that scum. He just walked straight upstairs, his steps almost a blur, making it hard to keep up. It wasn't until Alex reached the top-floor attic that he kicked open the locked door. The sight inside made Marcus's pupils constrict. It was a mess, covered in dirt, rice residue everywhere, fallen clutter, and broken porcelain shards. I was lying in a pool of blood, my lower half stained crimson, my face as pale as paper. In my hand, I clutched an old phone, still open to the call for help screen with Alex. Marcus's heart plummeted. He stared, dumbfounded, as Alex picked me up, brushing him aside on the way downstairs. Only then did Marcus come to his senses, scrambling to his feet and using both hands and feet to climb the stairs, chasing after Alex. But his limbs seemed to betray him, and he stumbled and fell countless times on his way down. "Emma." It wasn't until Alex carried me out of Marcus's home and settled me into the passenger seat that Marcus abruptly stopped, staring blankly at me, nearly unconscious, a hint of nervousness in his eyes. "Alex, what are you doing? Where are you taking my wife?" Alex spun around, blocking me from his sight. He slammed the car door shut, his sinister gaze sweeping over Marcus. "Get lost." My baby was gone. Before I even realized there was a tiny life within me, it had turned into a pool of blood and left my body. When I woke up and learned this, I clutched the blanket, my face pale. Alex's expression was grim too. He sat on a nearby chair with his arms crossed, rubbing his nose. An annoyance. The baby. If it's gone, it's gone. A bastard child, derogatory, from a man like that, it would only be a burden. It's better this way. No sooner had he finished speaking than he saw 2 streams of tears fall from my eyes, and he immediately panicked, fumbling to wipe them away. Don't cry. If you want children, you can have them again. There are so many eligible bachelors out there. Any of them could be your baby's father. There's no need to waste yourself on that scum. Even if you set your sights on me, it wouldn't be out of the question." Alex's self-important humor only made me cry harder, my tears unstoppable. The baby was gone, it wasn't meant to be, and I wouldn't force it. I only hated myself for being so blind, for throwing everything away for so-called love, even destroying my father's life's work, resulting in such bitter consequences. His spirit in heaven would surely scold me for being a disappointment. I just regret it. Alex watched me silently, his expression complex. Finally, he sighed, pulled my head to his shoulder, and embraced me. Don't be afraid. I'll help you. Because there were many things to deal with, I didn't stay at the hospital for too long. 2 days later, Alex handled my discharge. I was wrapped in layers of his winter coat. I tugged at the fur collar. This is ridiculous. It's not like I'm doing postpartum recovery. I was sweating, feeling stifled. Just as a little cool air finally got in, Alex quickly patted my hand away and pulled the fur collar tighter. You still need to be careful during post-miscarriage care. I asked Brenda to make you some nourishing herbal soup. It's warming up now. Remember to drink some when we get back. Brenda was actually Alex's longtime housekeeper. I was planning to move out of Marcus's estate and completely sever ties with Marcus, so Alex lent Brenda to me. I nodded, following behind him, and unexpectedly, as soon as we entered the elevator, we ran into Marcus. Marcus's charcoal gray suit was half open, and he held a bouquet of lilies. He seemed to be on his way out, but when he saw me, he paused and pressed the first floor elevator button. In the confined space, he awkwardly extended the lilies. Emma, I'm here to take you home. The ring on his ring finger gleamed, making my eyes sting. I didn't move, only looked up at him. What is the meaning of this? He couldn't possibly think that if he pretended nothing happened, I would just forget everything, could he? Marcus awkwardly clutched the bouquet, his eyes cast down slightly. I'm sorry. I was careless, it was my fault. I was furious at the time and didn't notice you weren't well. I'm very sad about the baby too. But we can still have children in the future. Will you give me another chance? As he spoke, he put on a vulnerable act, but his hand unfaithfully rested on my arm. We can also discuss Ethan's situation. My hackles immediately rose, and my stomach churned. I instinctively slapped his hand away. Get lost. There's no chance. I turned and leaned against the elevator door, desperately pressing the floor button twice more. Marcus was momentarily stunned, seemingly not expecting me to reject him. Emma. Just as his hand reached out again, Alex couldn't take it anymore. His face darkened as he slapped Marcus's hand away and forcefully pinned him against the elevator wall, looking fierce. Emma your head? Is Emma a name you're allowed to use? Emma is already planning to divorce you, so keep your hands to yourself. Marcus's pristine suit was crumpled, and half of his profile was pressed against the elevator wall, leaving a red mark. After hearing Alex's words, he stopped struggling and stared at me blankly. Divorce? Just then, the elevator doors opened, and I walked straight out. I turned my head to look at his pathetic state. He's right. I'll send you the divorce papers. From now on, we'll have nothing to do with each other. After sending the divorce papers to Marcus, as expected, he didn't agree. Fortunately, I had already prepared, having the media spread news of Marcus's marital troubles. #CEO Marcus's affair, Mrs. Sterling files for divorce, seeks of assets. What's next for Sterling? In addition, I collaborated with Alex to frantically dump Sterling stock, causing its share price to collapse. News that Sterling was headed for decline spread like wildfire. In the end, Marcus couldn't withstand the pressure and signed the divorce papers. After leaving the courthouse, he followed behind me, his eyes filled with sorrow. I didn't know if he was grieving his ruined reputation due to the affair, or if he was pained by having to give me half of his fortune. As we walked down dozens of steps, he instinctively pulled out a cigarette, but seeing me, he quietly lowered his hand. I almost forgot, you can't stand the smell of smoke. Marcus was a heavy smoker, especially when stressed, he could chain smoke. But because I couldn't stand the smell, he had never smoked in front of me all these years we'd been together. I scoffed, at this point, just stop pretending. Marcus suddenly gripped the cigarette in his hand, idly tapping it against his side. He looked at me with hopeful eyes. Emma, if I handle things with Grace and Ethan, can you give me another chance? No. I didn't hesitate. Marcus, stop acting like you can't live without me. It's disgusting. I held up the divorce papers in my hand. If you truly loved me, you wouldn't have only given me these low-quality assets, which, though seemingly fair, are actually in profitable downstream industries. And Holdings and Ascend, which are truly profitable, you either held on to tightly or had already falsified accounts to transfer assets, making them untouchable for me. Marcus, your love is so hypocritical. Marcus instinctively flinched when I called him out. He quickly explained, Ascend suffered investment losses overseas, its entire capital chain broke, and it's practically on the verge of bankruptcy, a real hot potato. And Holdings is also facing a major reshuffle due to the transition to new and old energy Currently, those executives are just drawing salaries without doing anything, each one more slippery than the last. I'm going to clear them all out. The situations at both these branches are too complex. I was afraid you wouldn't be able to handle them. I just scoffed. So many excuses. Are you trying to fool me? Is this how you show you want me to give you a chance? Marcus opened his mouth, wanting to say more, but Alex's car had already pulled up to the curb. Marcus could only watch regretfully as I got in. Once in the car, I played the recording. Marcus's voice clearly filled the interior. Ascend's capital chain broke. On the verge of bankruptcy. Eastmont is also facing a major reshuffle due to new and old energy transition. Those executives, each one more slippery than the last, I'm going to clear them all out. The more I listened, the deeper the smile on my lips became. Finally, I directly copied the recording to Alex, my eyes crinkling with amusement. Ascend's accounts are definitely problematic. CEO Alex, would you mind investigating for me? If you can't find anything, just release this recording. He said they were going bankrupt, right? Let's give him a little push and see if he can handle it. Since dared to deceive me, he deserved to pay the price. Even now, he still thought I was a fool. Alex was infected by the smile on my face and his lips curved into a grin. Consider it done. After parting ways with Alex, I didn't waste any time. I used the latter part of the recording to discreetly arrange meetings with Eastmont executives. Marcus was right, those high-ranking Eastmont executives, having been in their positions for so long, were indeed slippery. But these were seasoned veterans who genuinely held shares, and their influence was deeply entrenched, making them difficult to remove. Once my recording was released, these individuals developed animosity towards Marcus. Combined with my well-executed appeasement strategy, they defected, bringing their resources and shares to Vance. Within just a few days, Eastmont was deserted. On the other side, Ascend also imploded, reported for alleged money laundering and overseas asset transfers by its executives. As the group's chairman, Marcus was implicated as the alleged mastermind behind the scheme and couldn't escape responsibility. He was detained for investigation. The entire Sterling was teetering on the brink. My side, however, was flourishing. Leveraging the resources brought by the Eastmont executives and combining them with my existing industries, I formed a complete supply chain. Moreover, investors, no longer confident in Sterling, shifted their capital to my companies. I was riding a wave of success. To consolidate my father's life's work, I poured all my energy into the business, diligently handling company affairs, humbly consulting my father's former subordinates, and often forgetting to eat for days when busy. Fortunately, Alex remembered. Time to eat. He placed the lunchbox on my desk. Before I could even snap out of my stack of documents, he swept them aside, some even falling to the floor. I watched the documents with a pang of regret, about to protest, when Alex swung a long leg and sat directly on my office desk, gently tapping my forehead with the back of his hand, reminding me again, time to eat. He looked somewhat helpless. I brought my company to the top of the rankings, but I never worked as hard as you. You're completely working yourself to death. I smiled. What else could I do? These new executives aren't pushovers. I need to show them some CEO Emma capabilities, or I won't be able to keep them in line. What's more, Marcus's detention and investigation have ended, and he's lurking, watching. I have to stand firm and show them that Emma is no pushover. Alex nodded. ALRI. GHT, alright, you're the toughest. Just eat your meal first. He suddenly leaned towards me, holding the spoon as if to feed me. I was utterly bewildered, repeatedly backing away until I was almost pressed against the glass wall behind me. I looked at him suspiciously. What are you doing? It's not like I don't have hands. Alex, however, stopped my retreating office chair, brought the spoon to my lips, and narrowed his eyes. If you eat your meal nicely, I'll tell you some good news. Come on, open your mouth. My arm is getting tired. What kind of strange good news was this? I opened my mouth and accepted the spoon. Alex's eyes curved even more. He looked up, his gaze directed somewhere through the floor-to-ceiling window. On the side of the road, Marcus had been leaning against his car, waiting for a very long time. In his hand, he held an asset transfer agreement, occasionally glancing towards the window. In his other hand, a lit cigarette, its cigarette butt scattered on the ground around him. He lingered there, his thoughts a chaotic mess. It wasn't until he inadvertently looked up, his gaze meeting Alex's challenging stare through the glass, that Marcus froze. Watching their figures overlapping by the window, his fingertips trembled. The burning ash with sparks fell onto his hand, unnoticed. The good news Alex mentioned was actually about a collaboration with our company. This was a significant boost for Vance. To maximize the benefits, I immediately contacted the media to announce it. With Enterprise's backing, I believed Vance would quickly rebound and reach the scale my father had achieved during his lifetime. At the evening gala, I attended with Alex on my arm. Amidst the casual conversations, I radiated confidence. Marcus, however, wasn't faring well. The recent experiences had dulled his sharpness. He stood in a corner in a charcoal gray suit, looking subdued, his face covered in a faint stubble. His gaze towards me was deep and complex. People are quick to fawn over the successful and shun the struggling. When I was previously in the depths, everyone wanted to look down on me. Now that I was back on my feet and partnered with Alex, they were subtly excluding Marcus. Following the departure of Eastmont executives, Ascend's implosion, and his own investigation, Sterling had become a discarded asset by capital, with investors withdrawing their support and instead investing in my companies. When it rains, it pours. Several companies that had closely collaborated with Marcus previously also chose to cease working with him after the series of events, leaving him with a huge mess. It was said that during this period, he practically wore out his legs trying to find downstream partners, humbling himself and begging everywhere. It was quite laughable that the once renowned CEO Marcus, just months ago, had fallen so far. But today's protagonist was me. No one cared about his state. The people around me showered Alex and me with compliments, hoping to gain some favor from me. CEO Emma and CEO Alex are truly a perfect match, like a divine couple. I heard you two were childhood sweethearts. Seeing you today, you truly are a perfect match. Some insiders even half-jokingly quipped, not just that, the Vance and Hayes families had planned an alliance through marriage back then, but CEO Emma. He trailed off, glancing quickly at Marcus. If you ask me, marriage really needs to be between people from compatible backgrounds, at the very least, you know their roots, so you don't waste so many years only to be taken advantage of by some deceitful opportunist. Some people are just not in the same league. Fortunately, CEO Alex has been waiting all these years, so you finally didn't miss out. Marcus was already seething, and this was the last straw. His face dark, he strode over and punched the man to the ground. What the hell are you talking about? Emma is my wife. To hell with childhood sweethearts. His eyes bloods hot, he completely disregarded the fact that the man was a person of some standing, pummeling him over and over again. Only then, as if jolted back to reality, did he rush towards me after being pulled away by the crowd. He grabbed my hand, his voice pleading, his bravado completely gone. Wife, I was wrong, I was truly wrong. My feelings for you have never changed. The child was just an accident, I didn't want it. I was drunk and mistook her for you at the time. Please, give me a chance to make it right, okay? If you don't want the child, I'll give him up. As long as you can forgive me, I'll give up anything. Wife. He was indeed panicked. In front of so many people, he actually knelt down, pleading with tears streaming down his face. He was like a dog. I curled my lips and shook him off. Pointing to a secluded corner of the banquet hall, I said, "Your wife is over there." Grace was cowering in front of me. She must have snuck in, looking timid and utterly devoid of the arrogance she'd shown when bullying me before. Before I could even speak, she knelt down stiffly. Ms. Emma, I was wrong. I truly didn't expect things to turn out like this. I was just so worried something would go wrong with Ethan's illness that I revealed his true parentage. Marcus was right too, he's always loved you. I manipulated things after he got drunk, which is why I got pregnant with Ethan. His heart is completely yours. Please, can you forgive him? Otherwise, Marcus will truly go crazy and abandon us, mother and child. It doesn't matter to me, but Ethan can't be without a father. She was crying profusely, her appearance more desperate than on the day Sterling went public. But no one was there to appreciate her performance today. I pulled my skirt hem from her hand and said coldly, "What does that have to do with me? When you were destroying someone else's family, why didn't you think about a child not having a father? When you locked me in the attic, why didn't you think about apologizing to me? When I was vulnerable, you would have trampled me to death. Now the tables had turned, and you started playing innocent again. All that flowery talk, wasn't it just because you were afraid Marcus would abandon you and your child for me, regardless of the consequences? The wealth and glory within your grasp were about to fly away. Honestly, if he could truly be that ruthless, I might even be able to bury the hatchet with him." My voice rose at the end, reaching Grace's ears. Her eyes suddenly widened, a flash of malice crossing them. "Emma, are you toying with me? Grace completely lost it. Banking on no one being around, she finally revealed her true, sinister face. She shoved me hard. Bitch, what are you so proud of? You're just arrogant because you have a rich daddy. A fool like you deserves to be cheated on. Losing your child is what you deserve. So what if I hate you? How can you have everything and still try to steal Marcus from me? Do you know how many years I've waited for him? Why should he marry you? What makes you think you're better than me? If he truly loved you, why would he sleep with me? You're so stupid, you deserve to be cheated on. I only regret not finishing you and that bastard child off in the attic. Grace pressed closer, her eyes filled with jealousy and hatred, absolutely deranged. Psycho. I didn't want to deal with her anymore. I stood up, brushed the dust from my skirt, and turned to leave, but Grace grabbed me. Her face was maniacally contorted. Emma, I warn you, don't run your mouth in front of Marcus. I have nothing to lose anyway. I'll drag you down with me. You're so rich, you must be more afraid to die than I am, right? Ha, I burst out laughing. I lifted my chin at her. You should worry about yourself first. After all, Marcus was standing right behind her, his expression extremely grim. As the evening's protagonist, I had been gone too long, and people were already wondering. Marcus, in particular, had found me earlier but had blended into the shadows under the trees, so Grace hadn't noticed him. He had seen everything. Not just him, a few onlookers were also nearby, a subtle smile playing on their lips. Oh, they got some juicy gossip. Ex-girlfriend and current wife tearing each other apart, what a show. This pure one turned out to be a psychotic villainess who made Emma lose her child. Looks like Marcus has no idea. TSK, this is going to be good. Marcus's face was dark. Grace, realizing what was happening, rushed towards him frantically and fell to her knees with a thud before Marcus, assuming a pleading posture. Marcus, you've misunderstood, it's not what you saw. I just hoped Ms. Emma could forgive you, Before she could finish, Marcus shoved her away violently. His jaw muscles twitched with suppressed rage, his eyes bloodshot, as he spat out a word filled with extreme hatred. Get out. Bitch, how could you be so vicious? You ruined me, my child, my... Marcus trembled all over when he learned the bloody truth, even his breathing was shaky. His life, everything he had, was ruined by this manipulative venomous woman. He cautiously looked at me, wanting to say something, but recoiled tremblingly as his gaze met my mocking one, his lips pressed tightly together. Grace still clung to him, weeping, but her expression now held a hint of mad panic. Marcus, I told you I didn't mean to, what more do you want from me? No matter what, I'm Ethan's mother. You can't treat me like this. Are you trying to ingratiate yourself with Emma? Dream on. She's utterly disgusted by you. Even if you dump me, she won't give you a second glance. Marcus's temples throbbed from her words. The raging fire in his heart made him unable to maintain his composure any longer. He raised his hand and directly knocked Grace over, slapping her across the face. In an instant, Grace stumbled back from the blow, unable to dodge, and fell straight back into the pool behind her. Her head hit the edge of the pool. Grace's eyes widened, her body stiff and unable to struggle, completely submerged in the cold pool water, a cloud of blood spreading. The scene immediately devolved into chaos. Although was rescued in time, she was severely injured and paralyzed on one side of her body. And because too many people saw Marcus push her into the water, the news couldn't be suppressed. By the next day, news of CEO Marcus's domestic violence had spread like wildfire, with video evidence, leaving him no room to argue. Sterling's stock price continued to plummet due to the scandal, almost reaching its issue price. To quell public opinion, Marcus could only use marriage as a bargaining chip, marrying Grace and begging for her forgiveness. When they got married, I had just finished closing a major business deal abroad. As I stepped out, I saw their wedding footage broadcast on a large public screen on the street. Marcus, dressed in stark white wedding attire, pushed Grace in her wheelchair. One side of her body, disfigured by injury, looked grotesque, her face utterly devoid of expression. Behind them followed a flower child with a dazed expression. Guided by the officiant, they walked down the wedding aisle, symbolizing happiness and prosperity, yet it looked more like they were walking hand in hand into the grave of marriage. TSK, still watching? A dark figure blocked my view, and Alex's face gradually filled my vision. A smile played on his lips. Still so hung up on it? Stop teasing. I pushed him away. Alex dramatically staggered back a few steps, then walked around to the car, making a grand gesture as if inviting royalty into a carriage. Before getting in, I took one last look at Marcus's face on the large public screen. His pale, tired appearance still revealed a hint of his handsome features. I had once been so hopelessly in love with him, willing to die rather than marry anyone else, but now, looking at him, he couldn't stir a single chord in my heart anymore. It was like looking at an inconsequential stranger. I sighed. Let's go. All that painful, obsessive entanglement had long since turned to ashes with his repeated betrayals. Marcus was trapped in the past. Half of his future life would be spent guarding Sterling, which was on the verge of collapse, and the other half atoning for his sins against Grace. But I had moved on, ready to embrace the sunshine and welcome my new beginning. Epilogue. Years later, Marcus learned the news of Emma's marriage. He had been drinking with a business partner at a business dinner until midnight, trying to secure an order. His stomach burned with pain. Afterward, he rushed straight to the restroom, leaning over the toilet, vomiting incessantly, bloody saliva dripping from his mouth. His throat was filled with the metallic, rusty taste of blood. In a daze, he overheard a casual conversation from outside. CEO Emma is getting married on the 3rd of next month. Did you get an invitation? Me? I'd love to go, but I'm not important enough. I've been trying to get in with CEO Emma for years, but she's constantly buried in work. How could a nobody like me possibly reach her? Exactly. No one expected her to achieve such success. In just 3 short years, she's built Vance into this formidable enterprise. If I had known, I should have shamelessly clung to her for benefits. Sigh, the one who should regret it most is that guy from 209, right? He passed on a gem for a fake, made such a fool of himself. Now corporation is almost finished. He can't repay the huge loans, and every day he's drinking and fawning over small-time bosses for deals worth a few $100,000, living worse than a dog. And I heard his wife is demented too, no idea why. Anyway, I think Sterling is done for. Bankruptcy is just minutes away. Inside the restroom stall, Marcus lowered his gaze and flushed the toilet. He opened the door and walked out to the sink, his face cold, to the surprise of the 2 men. However, his unsteady, wavering steps betrayed his feigned composure. The 2 exchanged a mocking glance and walked out. The moment the door closed, Marcus completely gave out, collapsing onto the floor. Waves of agonizing stomach pain threatened to consume him. It hurt so much. So much. It was already the middle of the night when he got home. Marcus turned on the light. Grace was sitting in her wheelchair, staring at him. Since their financial strains forced them to sell the mansion, Marcus's estate had moved to this cramped 3-bedroom apartment. The house was cluttered with various odds and ends, and Grace's wheelchair blocked his path in the center of the room. Her eyes were dark and furious, her damp, resentful gaze slithering over Marcus like a snake's tongue. Where have you been? Why are you back so late again? Are you messing around with some other woman behind my back? Marcus was utterly exhausted and didn't want to answer. He simply placed the newly bought adult diapers on the cabinet. But, as if provoked, maneuvered her wheelchair with one side of her body and lunged at him, grabbing and tearing at him recklessly. I knew you couldn't stay faithful. You reek of alcohol. Tell me, who's the slut this time? Marcus, you're shameless. Her sharp nails scratched his face, leaving several grotesque bloody scratches. Fortunately, the housekeeper appeared in time and pulled her away, giving Marcus a moment to breathe. Ethan is already asleep, Mr. Marcus. He was very well behaved today, didn't cry at all. You should go wash up. I'll take care of Ms.Grace here. Before she could finish, Marcus rushed into the restroom and vomited a mouthful of blood into the toilet. The spasms in his stomach reminded him that his health was precarious. Marcus leaned against the restroom wall, looking at the report from the hospital that stated advanced gastric cancer. He pulled at the corner of his lips in a stiff, mirthless smile. It wasn't surprising at all. Outside, Grace's curses still filled the air, but he was numb to them. As he was about to leave, he saw a news notification, Emma, dressed in wedding attire. His fingertips paused, and he felt as if he had suddenly gone back 10 years, to when he had just married Emma. Back then, he was high-spirited, had married a proud and noble wife, and had taken over his father-in-law's business. His future seemed limitless. But now? What about now? A demented wife, a mentally slow son, a precarious company, and his own sickly self. Marcus laughed derisively, covering his face with the back of his hand. As he held it there, 2 lines of clear tears streamed down his face. Only then did he realize he had ruined everything.